how many years have you been doing the Postcard Fest?
This was my first year.
How'd you find out about it?
I don't remember exactly. It was somewhere online, maybe Submittable or some newsletter or feed or something that I subscribed to mentioned it. I don't remember which one.
Rattle Magazine.
Oh, okay. Maybe it was Rattle. That's certainly possible.
What did you find attractive when you saw that?
Well, a few things. I've been writing poetry all my life, but it's always been just a personal expression kind of thing, and for friends and family and stuff like that. But I retired 7 years ago, and we moved down here to the beach, and I really decided that I wanted to focus on my poetry, to learn more about it and to do it in a more focused way. And so I've been doing lots of, I've been to workshops and done various writing and different things. So when I saw the Postcard Fest, I thought, well, one, it would be a really good discipline, because to put out 31 poems in a short period of time would it would help me to focus the discipline of writing. I loved the idea of getting poems from other people all over the place. That just was very attractive. And I really like the idea of sort of entering another poetry community, that I wasn't connected to up to that point. So I thought I'd give it a go.
Take us through your practice. You sit down at the computer or at the desk, and you have a list of 31 names, and you have the next list. Where do you get the cards? Is there any decision regarding stamps? Take us through everything.
Okay, well, the first thing I did in terms of finding what the postcards were going to be, I went through all my old drawers of things and came up with a variety. I knew I had a bunch of postcards that, I'd collected from here and there. So I had some of them. And then I thought, I've taken lots and lots of pictures, over the years of various things, not just places I've been, but all sorts of things. So I thought, why don't I just use some of my own photographs? And those are things that have some meaning to me that would be, I could certainly write off of. And so I collected, I put together a bunch of photos that I had. And so those were basically where the, where the postcard and the inspiration piece came from. And then one of the things that I guess at first I totally ignored the rule about, it's first draft stuff, which after reading, the different things that you'd posted online and people had posted, I understood that this being my first time, that was completely acceptable. And so, I would, at first I was pretty belabored over it. But as it went on, I think it got easier. I never wrote anything that I didn't scratch something out of, or, I always wrote them before I put them on the postcards. Part of that was just not knowing how small I had to write to fit them on the postcards, but also just thinking about, there were some I threw away I didn't even want to send. There were some that I sent a lot.
I hate when that happens.
But, it happens. I mean, so I kept them all. After the first few, I realized I needed some kind of organizational scheme here. So then I just started a Word document, and since most of them were pictures that I already had anyway, I just put the picture and a little text box for the poem and started putting the poems in there. And then, when I felt like the poem was what I wanted to send, then I just transferred it onto the postcard.
Have you ever seen the word cloud program called Wordle?
Yes. Yeah, it's fun. We did that. I was a teacher for a long time, and we would make Wordles with kids. That was a lot of fun to do.
Where did you move from when you moved to North Carolina?
From Washington, D.C. area, Maryland, Prince George's County, huge school system right outside of D.C., very, very multicultural, and a wonderful kids, wonderful teachers. Hard experience because seven, seven, um, 7 superintendents in 12 years that I was a reading supervisor. So, that makes it a little hard. But love teaching poetry, love doing things with kids around writer's workshop and all that sort of stuff.
Do you send bonus cards above and beyond the 31?
I sent one to you, and I sent about 4 of them. Sorry about that. I think it's the Texas bluebonnet.
Now I gotta find it. Here's my stash. I knew it was around here somewhere.
It made it into the picture that you posted, so I think you got it.
Yeah. Oh, now my curiosity.
And
Okay.
I also sent okay, it's a regular postcard. It's not a created one, and I think it's got the Texas bluebonnet even in the writing.
I remember it. How about that one? Did you see that one? Look at that.
Oh, that's nice. I
Abaya,
think I might have gotten something
yeah,
along those
something
lines.
for her. Abaya Thomas. Yeah, she's fantastic. See, I didn't plan for this. Somebody did one of these.
That's nice. Yeah, that's one of the real fun things about it, was getting all this huge variety of cards.
And it's
I
better.
also
Go ahead.
go ahead. I did send, since I live at the beach and I've taken so many sunrise pictures, I sent about 4 or 5 bonus cards to people with a poem I wrote for that. And that was about all the bonuses I did.
I see. Those aren't blue bonnets.
No, those aren't bluebonnets. It's just a big field and it says Texas bluebonnet on it. You got a lot of cards, so you got a lot to go through. There it is. That's it.
Oh yeah, your writing is pretty small.
Well, that was kind of long. They weren't all that long.
Oh, okay. Far out. This is great. You never connect you rarely connect with a person who writes the cards. I've tried. I'm like, hey, I'm going to be in your town. And they're like, yeah, well, I can't make it or whatever. And I don't know. It's a weird thing.
Well, that was one of the things I really liked about the festival. I always put my email on the cards when I sent them. And so a few people wrote back to me. And it turned out one of the best was there's the only other person from North Carolina on my list lives at the other end of the state. She lives out in the mountains near Asheville. And so she wrote back to me. And then I realized that we had both had poems published in the North Carolina Poetry Society's journal this year. And we were one page after the other. And we never would have, connected except through Seattle. so that was really fun.
Do you get sick of the seashell stamps?
Oh, no, I like all that stuff.
Do you mix it up or do you send all seashell stamps?
Oh, I think I sent whatever stamps I had. I didn't really think a whole lot about the stamps.
Are you on the Facebook page, the Postcard Fest Facebook?
Yes. Uh-huh.
Does that help or hinder the experience for you?
I liked it. It's sort of, I didn't think about it at the very beginning, so I'd already sent a bunch of postcards by the time I think I sort of tuned in. But then it was just interesting being part of it. That made it a little more of the community, I think. Do you have reservations about the Facebook page?
Oh, there's been a whole history of it. In the early days of the fest or of Facebook, I shut it off. I said, no more posting till September.
Why?
Well, I think that, and I'm going to tell you what I think. And the same thing with when people don't compose on the card. Popo also means police, and there are no popos. David Sherwin's piece on how writing postcards to strangers made me a better designer. That is one of the greatest testimonies of the fest. If you haven't read that, I recommend it. But I think that, to get away from the instant gratification culture that we have is important. And to slow down and say, we're going to write it on a card, we're going to put a stamp on it, we're going to send it in the mail, and when you get it, you get it. And people wanted to post their things online, and in the early years, somebody saw their poem that was coming to them online before it even got to their house. So it was like, that's not the feeling you want people to have. You want people to, like, this is the feeling I want. I want to go to the mailbox and see the cards, throw away all the garbage mail, because there's a thing right there in the condo building, and go, hey. And I'm always reminded, I don't know who said it first, of the letter carrier bringing her mail and was reading a postcard and say, hey, this one's pretty good. And it's nice to get a pretty good one. It's nice to get one that is beautiful, like the one I showed, or the ones I showed you. I've heard stories today about people who are framing some of the cards that they got because they're such beautiful pieces of art. So, on the other hand, what you say about community is really true. When Terry Holzman was struggling, people are like, hey, Terry, where are you? You're on this page every day. Has something happened? What's going on? Are you okay? So there was genuine concern. And, we've had at least one POPO participant die. You want to go back through your files and find the poems that they wrote. And who knows if they're like, you wanting to become more professional, have they collected all their poems, or is their work scattered out through, into mailboxes all over the continent or whatever? So it's a, I think it's a necessary evil having it on Facebook. If we could have that same kind of collective outside of Facebook, because I really think their business practices are reprehensible,
Yeah.
So if we could take it away from Facebook and put it on a new website, we would do it. We would do it. But Facebook has 1 billion people on it, and a good day on my website is 100 people. So tell us about the things that you haven't mentioned that you love about POPO.
Well, getting the cards is certainly a huge thing. I mean, I just feel like that's the way I wish poetry just was, that it's accessible to everybody, that it's, that it doesn't have to get filtered through editors and contests and every other thing, that if poetry was just more a part of society. And, so the idea of poems coming through the mail, and just being a natural part of your day and something, that was really nice. I just really enjoyed that a lot. And definitely the snail mail thing. You got all this advertisements and people asking you for money, and then you have a poem, and an art. And so I loved that. That was really nice. I really liked connecting with the other people. I did most of my poems kind of in a timely fashion. So a lot of mine got to the other person before theirs got to me, but there were some that I got first from other people, and I really did enjoy, in some cases, responding to what they did. One person sent me a poem. She had been in New York and in the museums and seeing these paintings of the Annunciation, and I never would have thought of writing about the Annunciation. But I had been in Italy 4 years ago and was blown away by these paintings. And so I had a real connection with that. And I wound up writing a poem about that. And it was like, I never would have thought about writing a poem about that, but it was fun. She wrote back and we talked about it. And so there were a number of instances where I did make personal connections with people, and riffing off of what they wrote. That was really, I really liked that. I found that, very interesting. And then I learned some good stuff from doing it. I mean, I really hadn't thought about how I don't write in specific forms very much. So usually when I sit down to write, I have no idea how long this thing is going to be. I just write. And but knowing that it was going to be short, relatively speaking, that kind of shaped it in a different way than it normally would in my sort of process of writing. I mean, I was thinking about it as first draft stuff, even if it wasn't like totally first draft stuff. Most of it was close to. I mean, I didn't, polish these things all up, but and so knowing it was going to be short, knowing it wasn't like a finished product really. It was freeing. It was kind of interesting, and then the form part, it made me explore what short poems do and how they work and stuff in a different way than I, really had thought about them before. And I also hadn't done much Frisiastic kind of writing, so taking the picture and writing, even though I didn't care if the poem totally described the picture or whatever, but writing off of the picture turned out to be really interesting for me and helpful, because I feel like I write more from my thinking about an end or whatever I'm thinking about, the stuff in my mind, but having a visual like that, um, it allowed me to like sort of meander in some of the visual aspects of whatever I was writing about in a way that I don't think I normally do. And actually, since then, some other things I've been writing, I've been taking pictures of them, just of stuff associated with it, so that I can kind of linger on it, in a different way than just what's in my memory or what's in my head about it. So I found that really, really helpful. And I guess those were the main things I really liked about it. And the short writing, also the thing about discipline did work. I mean, I feel like, when we worked with kids at writing workshop, we would always, say, and, the more you write, the better you get. But living that yourself it can be a different experience, So doing more writing consistently in a short period of time, I feel like, that did help. That was a good thing.
Were you ever in the middle of a thought on one card and the card had to end, obviously, because there's limited space, and then you continued on another card or two or three cards?
No, I didn't. I didn't ever do that, but that was probably because I cheated, and if it. But see, that wasn't such a bad thing either, because if it got too long, then I kind of looked at, what don't I need here? What, because I mean, you're always pruning a poem anyway, so it sort of helped me to say, well, this can't. There's got to be something I can get rid of here. I don't normally write really long stuff anyway, so.
I like to think more of it as tweezing than pruning. But
pruning's a good thing. Pruning allows,
new growth. That creates new growth.
New growth, exactly.
What about Popo would you change? Would you fix? What is in need of fixing, do you think?
I mean, I thought it was very well run. I thought it was very well organized. I guess the only thing I could think of, and this goes back to Facebook, which, but if somebody, I understand when people, they die or they're really sick, or, somebody in their family. I mean, there's reasons why people don't follow through. But I would love if there was a norm that if that wasn't the case, if you just decided, oh, I don't really like this, I'm not going to finish, or I'm not, or I'm too busy or whatever, if there was a way that people would just post that, hey, I'm sorry, group 8 through 7, but, I'm not going to complete this, good luck to all of you. I mean, because there were probably about 8 people I didn't get cards from. And I assume that 3 or 4, 2 or 3 or 4 of them, got thrown out in some of the news PO box or didn't make it or whatever. But, I just sort of felt like if people started, it would be nice for them to acknowledge they weren't going to finish it. That was the only thing. everything else, and that's a very minor thing. I mean, it's not a big deal at all, but it felt incomplete in sort of way. Like I had this sense about all the other people on the list, and then there were these blanks, that I didn't really have a sense about, and that made me more curious. And so I think if there had been a little bit of closure to that, it would have been better. But other than that, which is, like I said, a really small thing, I thought it was very well done. I thought it was, you know, there were rules, but they weren't. Well, I do think the rule about not posting people's poems is very important, and that it was there was enough structure to it, so you knew what you were supposed to do, but there was really a lot of room for how you wanted to do it, and so that was very nice. It was a sense of community through the whole thing, and um, I don't know. I really can't think of anything that could be, I would want to change about it.
What
What
advice
advice
would you have
would you have?
for someone considering joining the fest?
Just do it. Why
That's
not?
what everyone
I mean,
says. That's what everyone says.
I mean, it's very low risk. It's very unthreatening, non-threatening. It's fun if you're into writing, and it's just something you sort of jump into, and it go and you learn some things. You learn some things about yourself, and you learn some things from the other people that you get stuff from, and um, I guess maybe only would be make a commitment. If you're going to do it, and so know that you're not going to be you know doing something in August that you're absolutely not going to spend time writing.
Do you have a postcard poem you'd like to share, or should I just read the one you sent me? No.
Nah, it's a little corny. I'll read you this is real short. This is the bonus card that I sent with the picture of the sunrise. It's very short. Morning. The sun breaks night silence, speaking a language everyone understands.
You broke up a
You
little.
broke up a little.
Can you try that again?
Oh yeah, you're breaking up a little bit too. Okay. Morning. The sun breaks night's silence, speaking a language everyone understands.
All right. Thank you for being agreeing to be interviewed for this, and thank you for your inspired participation in the fest.
Well, thank you very much for sponsoring it and doing it. It's great.
It's a lot of fun.
Yeah, I'm sure it is. I'm sure it is. How long have you been doing
Next year is 14th year, I think.
it? So can where are we? I have like maybe 2 minutes. What have you felt has been
Oh,
the
take your
most
time. I
rewarding?
don't have a thing till 2:00. So
Oh, okay.
go
Oh,
ahead.
yeah. What have you found to be the most meaningful part of it for you?
I find that as time goes by, different aspects of the fest come in and allow me to make it a deeper experience. Um, Seemingly endless depth. I started it wanting people to understand that writing spontaneously can be done, and to quell the editor's mind can be done, and that you can get it right by writing on the card, and that there's something scary and liberating at the same time, maybe akin to calligraphy or whatever, I don't know. So writing on the card and writing spontaneously was something I wanted people to have an experience of, because I did my graduate work on spontaneous composition as practiced by people like Michael McClure and Denise Levertov and other people like that.
Hmm.
Then I
Denise,
started.
oh, go ahead.
Levertov wrote an essay called "Some Notes on Organic Form,"
Huh.
and it's really well done. And she in the late 50s and early 60s was composing very spontaneously, and up until right about at her rift with Robert Duncan, that's I think that was the real sweet spot of her oeuvre, I guess. And then I started getting beautiful cards. I don't know, 3, 4 years ago, there was a real emphasis, or I was getting more cards that were homemade and were really cool. They were
Yeah.
so cool. And I
Yeah.
thought, oh my God, I want to do that. So year before last, I started making collages. And then I committed last year to doing all my cards, to creating all my cards in advance. And I did a lot of collaging of cards during the fest as well, and had a system for that, and found that also liberating. Sometimes it impacted the content on the backside, sometimes it didn't. And then near the end of this fest, it became really clear that if I could be more mindful when I'm actually writing the card, I mean, in terms of penmanship, that it would be akin to, calligraphy or sort of meditation with a pen. And that to me is the next frontier. And it's going to take me several years, I think, before I could come up. I should probably take a course in calligraphy. I got an autograph or an inscription from Tim McNulty, who is a poet on the Olympic Peninsula, and his inscription, it was beautiful.
Mm.
And I thought, I'm going to have to learn how to do that, or it would behoove me to learn how to do that. And then, of course, you start getting into pens. I've already gotten into different stamps. My desk is a mess, but if I move this stuff over here,
Uh-oh.
yeah, it's a little bit of a fustercluck. There go my cards. My cards were in my lap. But here we go. This bag of stamps over here. First of all, my list, right? So I get each one on the list. I make a note of what number it is in the series of postcards that I've written. So I'm closing in on 900 postcards written. And then, of course, these stamps, which I did a couple of postcard poems that were like Rorschach tests. You know that joke, the joke about the guy who goes in for the Rorschach test?
I don't know about this
It's
one.
an old joke. He goes in and he says, Mr. Jones, we're just going to show you some images. All you need to do is say the first thing that comes to your mind about it. You know that one, right?
I don't know this one, but
Well, he says, here's the first one. And the guy says, oh, that's a couple having sex. He says, okay, here's the next one. Okay, now that's a couple having sex, but the woman is on top. Okay, next one. Now that's a man having sex with 2 other women. Okay, next one. That's a man having sex with 2 other women, and there's a goat above them swinging from the chandelier. And the therapist puts it down and he says, well, Mr. Jones, I think we've figured out that you have a sexual fixation. And he says, me? You're the one showing me all the dirty pictures. I have a poem that references that. With the USPS. I think it ends something like with the USPS showing me all the dirty pictures, because there's one in there that kind of has an erotic view in my mind. And then there's the cactus flowers. Those are very nice. And I know these are letters, but you know what? A few extra cents to send something that sometimes ends up in the poem or has a connection. I just got these postal murals. These stamps are, kind of nice.
Yeah.
There's the "Oh Beautiful," right? There's the "Wild and Scenic Rivers," right? There's the bird stamps. These ones are pretty cool, especially if you have a bird reference. We've got a lot of hummingbirds here, so a lot of hummingbirds. Then this one, a friend of mine made this painting, which I have over there, and I photographed it and then had it turned into a stamp.
Oh, cool. How nice.
So to have your own images, I mean, I could see someone who could get really anal retentive and make stamps of, like say they make 30, I don't know, mountain stamps or whatever, and write a series about the mountains or something. I could see that. And of course, John Lennon, we've seen those.
Right.
Gregory Hines, you probably saw those. And and Ellsworth Kelly. Look at those. That's pretty cool.
Oh, those are nice. Yeah.
And then I
So
I
have you done a lot of stuff with visual poetry? I mean, have you looked at the people who write visual poetry?
concrete poetry. Yeah, I've done a little of that
Not
myself.
just but I mean, I've seen these things lately where when you were talking about the calligraphy, like it's not even it's it's sort of a visual poem. I mean, it doesn't necessarily have words. I mean, it's all letters but it isn't necessarily even um, you know, whole words or whole, certainly not whole verses or anything like that. Not like sort of typical concrete poetry. But when you were talking about the calligraphy, it reminded me of that because I was just seeing some of those images online that people seem to be doing. Seems close to your idea of, the fan movement relating to all that.
Yeah, a friend of mine, Nico Vasilakis, moved from Seattle to New York 5 or 6 years ago, and he co-edited something called the Last Vispo Anthology. So Vispo short for visual poetry, and
Uh-huh.
that has some really interesting stuff in it. And there's that I don't know. I guess it has roots in surrealism or Dada. I'm not sure, but they do some interesting things. And then we published an anthology of Cascadia poetry going on 5 years ago. And there's a woman in Vancouver, BC. She was part of the Tish, or around Vancouver at the time of the Tish movement in the early 60s and 70s. Her name is Judith Coppathorne. She's on Facebook a lot. And we published some of her poems, like, for instance, here. Now
Uh-huh.
these have words in them, but it's I mean, it's under the
Yeah. Yeah.
under the Vispo sort of banner. I guess that was the only one we published. Bright paper, maybe not. Anyway, so a little bit of interest in that. I don't know. You don't know where the stuff is going to go. I think because obviously you want to evolve. You want to um, you know go deeper down your own throat. And the Postcard Fest, I think Judy Jensen described it as a season, like the holidays. There's something about it. And it feels like that to me, And I'm trying to work out in my head, combining my own personal mythology, how are the seasons constructed? There's the beginning of the year, so it's, New Year's resolution season for a while, and then it kind of goes into Imbolc or groundhog season and so on and so forth. After the holidays, this year we hosted two different Thanksgivings, one on the Thursday and then one on the Saturday, second Thanksgiving. And so then we were in leftover season there actually it's still going on. There's still some stuffing in the fridge, So trying to figure out the different, and of course postcard season, obviously, but trying to figure out these different seasons and how they reflect your personal mythology, to me, is interesting.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So more depth, I think.
Well, it's great. Well, that's good. That means you'll keep doing it, and it'll keep being,
Oh yes, we have plans to expand the fest significantly, and we're going to have some announcements coming up soon. These interviews are part of the effort to create more awareness about the fest. So thanks for your participation.
Oh, you're very welcome. Thanks for doing it, and good luck with everything.
See you at the mailbox.
Okay, take care. Bye-bye.